Hello and welcome to Dun Bradstreet's webinar titled D&B Buyer Intent, Drinking Our Own Champagne Using Intent Data Signals to Reach and Engage In-Market Buyers First. My name is Kristen Coyne and I'll be your moderator for today. We have a few quick housekeeping items to share before we get started. All attendees' phone lines will be muted throughout the duration of today's event. You can submit a question for presenters at any time in the Q&A box located to the right of your display panel. Today's event is scheduled to run for approximately 30 minutes, and we have planned time at the end to take your questions. And finally, all event registrants will receive a follow-up email with today's presentation recording and a copy of a B2B Marketer's Guide to ABM ebook. Do you want to advance to the next slide? Thank you. Today's agenda will kick off with Sean Crowley, Integrated Marketing Leader at Dun Bradstreet, on the importance of being able to recognize the right buyer signals to achieve your growth targets. We'll then hear from Kate Rogers and Jarrett Hollier from our digital marketing team on how they successfully tested using intent data to improve engagement with key accounts and achieve ABM targeting at scale. Before I turn the presentation over, let's take a quick audience poll. We can bring the poll question up here on the screen now. Today's poll question is, are you currently using intent data? If you could stretch out the poll for me, operator, that would be helpful. Go ahead and answer your questions. Looks like we've got some answers coming in. Thank you for those. Give it another few seconds. Okay, great. Do you want to push the results for everybody? All right. So it looks like 4% on the question, are you currently using intent data? 4% of our audience is fully implemented in their tech stack. 16.6% partially implemented, 4% currently using intent data, and not currently but planning to test it in the future at 45, almost 46%. Okay, thank you for taking that poll and sharing the audience insights with our presenters. At this time, without further ado, I will now turn the presentation over to Sean. The floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Kristen. And not surprising, some of those statistics there. I hope that you'll find this presentation today informative for those of you who are exploring this and trying to seek for ideas. And for those of you that have partially implemented or fully implemented, maybe this helps spark some ideas. Given the fact that we're on probably week 5 of stay at home, I wanted to start today off by taking a little trip. Let's get outside of our home offices and think about things in the broader world. So what you see here is this is a buoy. This is a weather buoy. It's from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, buoy 51101. This buoy has some mythic qualities about it. I first read about this buoy in Ski Magazine, an article that was published several years ago. But this buoy has taken on a life of its own, and it's known as the powder buoy. What this buoy does is, it's just like any other normal buoy. It sits about 186 nautical miles northwest of Kauai, which is one of the Hawaiian Islands. And every day it spits out a ton of data, right? So it tracks wind direction and wind speed, gusts of wind, atmospheric pressure, and rightfully so, this is about measuring the current weather conditions at this specific point. But what this does is this helps the state of Hawaii understand, and not just the state of Hawaii, but other geographies as well, know about what weather is coming. and from what direction and how severe it could potentially be. The locals in Kauai and other Hawaiian islands, but mainly in Kauai, actually keyed into this and started to recognize that, when they actually saw a significant pop, a buoy pop, and that was the change in the average wave height. And you can see here that, the average wave height is about 6 feet, and then over the course of a 12 to 18-hour time window, suddenly that buoy pop went from about an average of 6 feet to 20 plus feet, which is a pretty significant indicator for the locals that lots of good times were coming, right? And so the surfers started to really look at this thing and track it regularly to understand when the big surges were coming and when the big waves were going to hit. And so then suddenly somebody, clearly, and it was probably some trustafarian who spent their winters between Hawaii and skiing in the Rockies, or just hardcore skiers got wind of this thing, and they actually started to understand, hey, when we see indicators going on with this specific buoy, that there's going to be an indication. If we know that 2 or 3 days later they get a big storm surge and the waves hit Kauai, well, maybe 10 to 14 days later, they started to look at the correlation of that data. And so what they did is, some enterprising folks or really some hardcore skiers at the University of Utah started to do some regression analysis. And what they did is they looked at, hey, we just got a massive, a storm of 20 to 24 inches of snow. When did we see the last buoy pop? And they started to draw a correlation and understand that when you see a significant wave height change, typically within 10 to 14 days, you're going to see a massive snowstorm in the Wasatch Mountain Range and Park City, Utah area, and frankly, in a lot of the Rockies and Southern Rockies area. So, I got really into this and started tracking this. I take an annual ski trip to Utah with some friends, and I started to do this regression analysis, and we would book our trips at a specific time, and then I would start watching the buoy, and I would be looking at 2 to 3 weeks out to look for that wave height in anticipation of some snow that was going to happen. Now this year, actually, my annual trip got a little bit disrupted. Timing, friends couldn't quite make it at the right time, and so my plan was to actually ride the buoy pop. I was going to be tracking it, and when I saw this pop, I was going to then book a trip 2 weeks later to go to Utah. So I had visions in my mind in early March, right, late February, early March of skiing in deep powder, right, and just like getting into it and having all kinds of fun. So my mind was racing, and I came back from actually the B2B Marketing Exchange event in Scottsdale, Arizona at the end of February. And then all of a sudden, the coronavirus hit with force. And so, while I was hoping for, this type of a reaction and this type of an event, this is what I ended up with instead. And it's unfortunate, that, everybody has been impacted in new ways. And I think that it's really telling that, our success, right now, because many of our go-to-market plans have been disrupted, that we have to engage with the right accounts at the right time. And I think that many of us as marketers were looking forward to having a number of events, face-to-face events, to actually engage with those in-market buyers. And as all of those things have suddenly been disrupted, we need to find other ways in which to identify who is actually in market for our solutions, and engage and help influence them, through their journey, right? And this impacts the entire organization. It's just not just marketing. It's sales. Sales pipelines are full of uncertainty now, and then even collections, like post-customer acquisition. Customers are finding it increasingly difficult, or will find it increasingly difficult to actually pay some of these solutions. And you can see here, Dun Bradstreet is in a fairly unique position to track a lot of this and see the correlations between this. And you know, Topo did some very quick surveys out there, and you're seeing some widespread impact as a result of this global pandemic. So, you know, so what do we do here, right? You combine some of this uncertainty in the marketplace with the fact that the control of information has shifted from vendors to consumers, to the buyers themselves. And most of the time, buyers are on a self-guided, self-selected journey to actually understand what solutions are out there, what might be the right fit for them, and go through that selection process pretty extensively before they choose to engage with a vendor. HubSpot came out with a recent stat, maybe last year, where they said that 70% of all closed-won deals go to the salesperson who was in there first. So being able to understand those leading indicators, right, those buoy pops that you see within businesses looking, searching, trying to understand you as a potential solution provider for the needs that they have, you know, being able to get in front of that to understand and unmask those anonymous interactions that happen can put you in a greater likelihood of succeeding and influencing that buyer's journey. So, you know, this anonymization of a buyer's journey and how customers and prospects are going through it on their own, we like to call this kind of the dark funnel. Like, there is demand out there, but, you know, with increasing privacy concerns and regulations that are out there, people don't have to expose who they are and where they are in the buyer's journey necessarily as early as, you know, we as marketers would like. So you have to understand and try to find new ways to actually influence this buyer's journey. And this is where buyer intent data really comes in. If you can identify the accounts that are actively seeking and looking online for solutions that match what you provide as a solution provider, you can start to guide that journey. You can start to influence that by placing digital ads and targeting those ads to the accounts that matter most to you, combined with the fact with the accounts that are actually in market looking for solutions. So just wanted to set the stage here. We actually have recently launched this product, D&B Buyer Intent, at the end of February at that B2B Marketing Exchange event I mentioned. So it's been in market just a little bit, and we've been doing some testing, and we were actually our first beta customer for this. So I'm going to hand this off to Kate and Jarrett to tell you about how we actually use this to identify and engage with the right accounts and help progress them through a journey and engage more successfully with that. So with that, I think that this is a great opportunity, and I'll just hand things over to Kate right now.
Thanks, Sean, and hi, everyone. I am on D&B's marketing and advertising team, and I'm responsible for our global media strategy in support of our sales and marketing business unit. So the first scenario I am going to talk you through today is how we used D&B's own intent data to do ABM targeting at scale to drive both quality traffic and engagement to our website. So with both the media and advertising technology landscape evolving as quickly as it is, we're constantly looking for new targeting opportunities to test within our programmatic channels. Oftentimes, we find that our targeting options are just too broad for the specific needs of our campaigns. So this is exactly the case we had with a campaign we were running last year for one of our flagship sales acceleration solutions. It was clear we were just casting too wide of a net, and our return on ad spend just wasn't where we needed it to be to generate those quality inbound leads. We needed a more sophisticated way to craft those target audiences and reach them at the right stage in their buying journey. So thankfully at the time, our product and analytics team were in the testing phase with this new D&B Buyer Intent solution. So it was a win-win for both of our teams. So we followed a phased approach in our testing of our buyer intent data. Phase one was the creation of the actual intent model itself. So we provided the analytics team with a sampling of our top keywords from our paid search program. This allowed them to generate a custom model that would match exactly what we were bidding on in Google AdWords. So that was phase one. And then phase 2 was synthesis and matching. So the custom intent model works by taking our keywords and combing through billions and billions of digital events in the D&B data cloud. It uses natural language processing to determine which relevant online content, which content is relevant to those key phrases, and it leverages deep learning to decipher really where in the buying journey a specific piece of online content is associated with. So from there, it turns back to the DUNS number as well as the buying score, which quantifies the relevancy of that online content, as well as the intent score, which quantifies the statistical significance of the increase in intent of a particular DUNS over time. So that's phase 2, and then phase 3 was the activation and testing. So the intent model, once it was built, it returned back a list of target accounts each week. It was refreshed each week alongside the buying score and intent scores. So we simply loaded the intent list into our DSP alongside our control group, and we monitored the results in the following month. So for the marketers on the line, I think we all know we rarely look at one performance metric. We often look at a combination of a few to understand what's really working and what's not. So initially, our click-through rate wasn't favoring the intent list, but what was great was that our CPA was much lower. As a test iteration, about halfway through, we decided to keep the audience set up the same and do a creative swap. So we rotated the exact same creative in for both the test and control groups. Now, after running a few weeks of that, after changing, the click-through rate for the intent list improved, and the CPA, remained lower. So you can see on here on the right-hand side the culmination of lift metrics we saw. So net, the creative swap made a difference, and it really confirmed the need for, iterative testing and optimization with programs like this. So moving forward, our plans for 2020, we're looking to test intent for our other products. As Sean mentioned, finding the buoy pops in a sea of people is just more critical now than ever to us as sales and marketing professionals. So we're working on getting our messages in front of those hand raisers and getting in front of those in-market buyers, which D&B Buyer Intent is a critical piece. And now I'm going to hand you off to my colleague Jarrett, who will speak to 2 more scenarios.
Thank you, Kate. Hi, this is Jarrett Hollier. I lead our digital marketing efforts at D&B as they relate specifically to our dnb.com platform and experience for customers. So what I'll be speaking to you about today is helping you understand how we have taken our own champagne and illuminated that dark funnel that you heard Sean speak to previously and improve the customer experience by increasing customer engagement and then ultimately driving a bottom line impact for our company and a beneficial impact for our customers as well. The first piece that we're going to talk about 2 scenarios. The first one is really beginning to unmask those anonymous visitors in that dark funnel, if you will. So we have a situation before we implemented this technology, or before we implemented this solution, where we had only visibility to 0.5% of our audiences on dnb.com. And those audiences were only the ones that actually completed forms in our online experience and were hand raisers. So if you could see here, we had 150,000 anonymous visitors. We only really had an understanding after they converted who they were, what accounts they belonged to, etc. So obviously we have this untapped audience of 99% that we would like to learn more about, as well as having an understanding of once they become into our tech stack, how is that journey tied across each of these tools and systems that are meant to drive a robust customer experience. And as you can see here, we really didn't have any way to delineate or connect that information because we were so blind in that dark funnel. So once we actually implemented the online intent data to our online traffic, what we found is that we could identify 33% of our anonymous web traffic. And not only could we identify what accounts they were, we were able to connect them to 5,800 ultimate Duns. Then we were able from there to understand how many were current customers, how many were prospects, and then between those, how many were turned into opportunities, what was the volume of those opportunities in terms of real dollars, and then the actual how many of them were in late stage opportunities. So this allowed us to shine the flashlight on our funnel and really understand who was interacting with us from an account perspective. And as I alluded to earlier, we were able to connect this experience across our tech stack. So as we identified this 33% volume or 5,800 companies, we were able to better understand where they were in various buying phases and various interactions across our technology stack. So by shining a light here, we were able to get a lot of learnings around who was interacting with us, how they were engaging with us. It also gave us the opportunity to now understand what we should be doing going forward to increase engagement and business outcomes with this audience. So I'll speak to that specifically in the next phase here, or the next scenario, which was really using content personalization against these customer audiences as we had identified them. The primary place that we started was on our D&B.com homepage. What we've done by recognizing and understanding what the accounts are, we've been able to prescribe specific experiences to them that are more aligned to prior browsing behaviors as well as prior buying activities, and ultimately giving them an experience that matches their needs and serves the content to them that they're looking for. So decreasing that amount of time of having to search and increasing ultimate engagement. In this scenario, what you're looking at here is that we've created customer tiering as well as the type of BU and product set that they might be browsing. So you can see that we're giving experiences based on the size of the customer as well as experiences tied to specific product lines that they're showed that they have a higher interest in. And then we have what we call cold state, which is the default experience that everyone will see no matter because we haven't been able to identify them appropriately. So what does that mean in terms of impact? After we set up this test, after we had illuminated our dark funnel, if you will, we implemented the personalization approach, and we were able to see a 238% increase in interactions. What we're defining for this example of interactions is ultimately engagement and converting into potential pipeline and or sales with D&B on our website in the forms of web fills, chat sessions, phone calls. And you can see the no personalization versus personalization content across the board resulted in increases in these interactions. Now, this was very beneficial to us. We've illuminated our dark funnel, as I've spoken to previously. We became more agile and able to quickly react and showcase content to customers that ultimately improved their ultimate experience by giving them the content that they were needing to look for faster, which ultimately increased conversions for our site. So this isn't where we're going to stop. We're still continuing to use this technology to evolve the experience for the customers. The first of which is ABM penetration analysis. We're continuing to look and understand across our product and solution sets how the targeted accounts that we care about most are interacting with our content. This gives us a better understanding of kind of how our account set is performing. CDP integration, that is also integrating in other technology that we offer with online intent data to essentially have a more robust 360-degree view of our customer set. That will also work hand in hand with the last one that is here on this slide in terms of navigation personalization. By increasing the amount of data that we have available in our accounts, we're able to bring more personalization elements to bear, such as navigation. And it goes back to bringing that content to the customer that they need in a faster, more efficient way so their experience is much more robust, and they're able to find what they need faster and ultimately have a better favorable opinion of D&B and convert within our online buying experience. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sean, who will take us home.
Great, thanks, Jarrett, and thanks, Kate. I think that those three scenarios that we looked at are perfect, provide a perfect picture of how do you combine first and third-party intent to ensure that you are reaching out and influencing those in-market buyers first, getting your brand in front of them, helping them understand that you are a solution provider and that they should be looking at your company. And then that first-party data, once they land on their site, being able to unmask who those people are, what companies that are visiting your site, as you saw from Jarrett, just like opens up your eyes really to see what is the impact. Now, we as marketers, as we go forward, the amount of scrutiny that's going to be put on all of our budgets, on all of our results, is just going to increase. We're going to have to ensure that we are measuring the impact of every dollar that we put into market. So number one, you have to make sure that you're putting your dollars targeted at the accounts that are going to have the highest likelihood to convert. And then secondarily, once they hit your website, you're going to have to make sure that those marketing dollars that you're putting into the market are actually driving the right type of traffic. And once you can validate that, then you start putting in content personalization. You start taking your understanding of the personas that you're trying to influence, of the companies that you want to do business with, to create compelling customer experiences for them. So I think that that's a really important point when you think about, when I look at D&B, right? We are thinking and acting very differently here at D&B. I don't know if many people know this, but at the beginning of 2019, D&B actually went private. We're a 178-year-old company, and at the beginning of last year, we were bought by a group of private equity investors who really wanted to transform this business. And we've focused around being, number one, aligned around the customer, right? And then understanding that to provide contextual information and understanding their fit, the profile, the interest, and the stage that those prospects and customers are in their buyer's journey, and then absolutely to be responsive to those customer signals, to identify the buoy pops that we're looking for, and then going out and being proactive in terms of how are we going to convert that into business. One of the ways that we do this, and this is just a precursor, my colleague Nupul Chokski is going to be doing a webinar around this actually next week on April 30th. But I want to give you a little taste of what we're talking about here. So we have a customer data platform here, and this is really where we're going with things. And we look at prospects across fit and buyer stage. And it's one of the unique things that buyer intent data does. Not only do we look at the fit of intent signals, so if you provide us with the keywords that you use in your SEO strategy, we'll build a custom intent model for you and say, these are the accounts that are out there that show a fit of looking for your keywords. Secondarily, we use natural language processing and artificial intelligence to look at the pages that those companies are visiting that match the SEO terms that you've given us, and then we do an analysis and we say, okay, is this a thought leadership piece, or is this a customer case study or product data sheet that could be potentially viewed more in a late stage buying journey? So we look not only at fit in the intent, but we also look at buying stage to determine where they are in the buyer's journey. And we're doing the same thing here internally. So we use AI from our customer data platform to align on high fit versus low fit targets for our business. We then look at the buying stage and we map what we know about these accounts and our engagements with them to where they potentially fit within the buyer stage. Then based off of that, we're going to make a determination of, which channels and which activation points do we want to employ going forward. Before this involved, we want to target this audience through a sponsorship of an event. That's gone, right? We're going to have to then be that much more selective about the accounts that we're going after. right? D&B's just also released a pipeline health scan score based off of the COVID-19 impact. So not only can you look at high fit versus low fit versus buying stage, now D&B allows you to start taking on risk into the determination of that account and say, you know what, maybe I'm not going to spend my limited marketing dollars on this industry right now, and just take it out of the segmentation to begin with, or just put it in a low-cost, brand type campaign and just stay in front of them so you keep brand awareness, but don't try to convert them because they're not in the market for it. So we look at all these things and we make determinations on which channels we want to activate, and we choose based off of what we're seeing which ad we're going to put in front of them as well. So just a very quick look at that. Just to kind of wrap up here, I'm hoping that we can maybe take a few questions. But I want to first thank Kate and Jarrett for coming in here and talking about what we did. And I think that they really helped emphasize the key points here. One is know what your buoy pops look like. Know what you're trying to do. Build a custom intent model and actually seek them out. Try it, because we have to get much more targeted, much more strategic with how we're spending money and who we're spending money on. So to increase the return on ad spend, understanding what that target criteria looks like from an account perspective is absolutely critical. Once you attract the right traffic, once you engage and influence those accounts that matter most to you, you got to find a way to unmask those visitors on your website, because there's a whole host of capabilities and goodness there that you can generate by being personal, by being engaging, by understanding who these personas are and the businesses that they're in, and providing the right types of messages to them to increase those conversion rates. Another point is reduce friction in all these interactions. Like that personalization will help do that. Pre-populate forms, right? Just, reduce the amount of opportunities that a visitor has to potentially abandon their experience and get them through as quickly as possible. And then finally, use buyer intent, right? Shine a light on that dark funnel. Understand where you want to put those limited dollars going forward to increase that return that you get. And then finally, please wash your hands, practice good hygiene, and hopefully we all get released from our home offices shortly, but safely, to be most importantly. And one thing as we wrap up here, hopefully we can take a couple of questions, Kristen. We actually have a free intent reach report. So this is something, if you go to dnb.com/intent, you can fill out a form there, and we'll get back to you. It's as easy as you providing us with 75 keywords from your SEO strategy. We'll go off, we'll build a custom model, and we'll come back and we'll show you the types of accounts. We'll give you the firmographic data of those accounts that are in market right now, and break this down for you so you get an understanding of what this actually looks like and how D&B Buyer Intent can help to shine a light on that dark funnel. So I understand we're a couple minutes past. Hopefully people don't have to leave right now, but I think, Kristen, maybe we can take a couple of questions here.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Sean, Jarrett, and Kate. I know, yes, we're over. Let's try to do a few questions, and then for the questions that we can't get to today, I do see a bunch in the queue here. We will reach out to attendees after the event. So the first question, it looks like it would be answered by both Jarrett and Kate, and that is, for the web and programmatic testing scenarios, how long did it take to implement, and how soon were you able to start seeing results in the lift metrics that you mentioned? Jarrett, do you want to answer first for the web?
Yeah, sure. So for us, the initial setup for us to understand illuminating that dark funnel, that was like 2 to 3, 4-ish days to basically add the tag, test the tag, understand that everything was working okay, and then basically let it go. And then do the analysis within like a week. And then we kept doing it for like every week and just building the analysis. So it didn't take us long at all. The other test with personalization, I think it's implied that everybody understands that maybe it took a little longer, but that was mostly because of the development activities on the personalization side more than it was loading in our online intent data.
And then on the media side, the advertising testing, the initial test launched on October 1st. We ran that first round of creative I mentioned for about 5 to 6 weeks or so, and then we swapped the creative out at that point. And at that point, the performance started to pick up, and we ended up running the test through January. So I would say, normal programmatic ramp time for getting some results. And then the test setup itself, I think it took a few weeks. We had, the keyword share, the model was circulated from the product team, and then we loaded the list through live ramp and then through to the DSP. So normal sort of programmatic timing on the media side. Great, thank you for that.
Thanks, Kate.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Yeah, sorry, Kristen, to jump in here. Yeah, no, I know we're running out of time. I see a couple questions here, one from Sydney and one from Graciela that I think I can answer as we wrap things up here. So the question is, if we have an ABM list, can we layer on buyer intent? Absolutely, right? So the buyer intent will identify the accounts that are in market, and you would just then match that up. So the accounts that we're seeing in market, match that to your ABM account list. And then you could know and narrow down the scope of that, of your outreach based on the ABM accounts that match the buyer intent. And this model is primarily based on account-based information, right? So we're understanding the IPs that are hitting these pages. So it is primarily account-based, but part of the D&B Data Cloud is that we also have millions and millions of contact records, and we've digitized that contact records in compliance with GDPR and CCPA privacy concerns. So we've stripped out all of the personally identifiable information about those contacts in associating them with device IDs and certain IP ranges. So when we have a contact that is showing those intent signals and we can make that match, we'll provide you with the persona-based information. So not personally identifiable, but we'll give you a job function. We'll give you a title or role level, right? Is this a director, a VP, or a certain level within that? So you can get extra insights if we do happen to have that contact data represented as well. So great insights both at the account and the company, account and the contact level, but it is primarily an account-based intent model. So I did want to just wrap things up here and say thank you, everybody, for taking the time to join us here today. I really hope that you reach out, take advantage of this reach report. And then one other thing, when you come to dnb.com, we have an entire coronavirus resource page. So I mentioned in the presentation here today the pipeline health scan report. So we can look at the pipeline that you have and associate a potential risk score associated with those accounts to understand both the geographic and the economic impact of this, the global pandemic that we're dealing with. So just to give you a little bit more insight into the health of your pipeline, and there's a whole host of other free reports and free offerings that we have to help small, medium, and large businesses weather this storm. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. Go to that page and check that stuff out, because we're all in this together. And as B2B marketers and sellers, I think we hopefully have some sellers on the line here. I think it's our responsibility to keep commerce going here. And so anything that you can do to maintain the health of your own business, but then also recognize the opportunities that do still exist out there, we have to keep going here. You have to be recognized and be empathetic to who you're dealing with, right? You don't want to be inappropriate, but we also owe it to ourselves, to our businesses, to the economy as a whole, to keep this thing going forward. So I encourage you to take a look at those resources. And if you want to reach out to me, please feel free. I'm at Sean T. Crowley at Twitter. Thank you, and have a great day.